start? Hello? Can you hear me? Hello? Yeah, you can hear me? Yeah, it's my pleasure to welcome you today to the event Increased Climate Ambitions through Voluntary Cooperation under Article 6.2. I'm Alexandra Sötzer, a Global Carbon Technical Advisor and Manager of Carbon Payment for Development, or CPD, with UNDP. In our session today, we will hear from early movers. It's difficult to understand. Closer to the, okay. We will hear from early movers, movers that are ready to take action, yeah, to increase climate ambition and implement activities on the ground. And as we all know, this is key to achieve the goals of the Paris Agreement. Our esteemed panelists today are Daniel Tutu-Benefor, Director, Climate Change Unit, Environmental Protection Agency in Ghana; Anthony Gare, Director, Department of Energy, Vanuatu; Erika Stieger, Professor of Practice, Director of Climate Resilient Farming Systems at Cornell University; Alexander Mulia, Project Manager at UNDP Ukraine; and Mireia Villaplana, Director, Climate Policy, Finance and Carbon Markets at South Pole. Welcome to our panelists today. I will start this session with a short introduction of the Carbon Payment for Development Facility, CP4D, through which we collaborate with Switzerland and now most recently also with South Korea. Through CP4D, we implement UNDP's future smart approach to development. We are harnessing innovative financial mechanisms in partnership with governments and the private sector to advance progress on multiple SDGs. One key component of CP4D is its Article 6 Transfer Readiness Assistance activities. And this component focuses on the development of regulatory frameworks on Article 6, which guide the implementation of Article 6 projects and provide a robust, broader framework for carbon markets. We are also working on Article 6 digital infrastructure together with UNFCCC, the World Bank and EBRD through Digital for Climate to develop an end-to-end digital system to simplify the workflow of ITMO projects, of carbon projects, and to streamline approval processes for governments. And in order to offer this end-to-end digital carbon market system, we are now in the process of connecting UNDP's Carbon Cooperation Platform with the World Bank Climate Action Data Trust. And the goal is to have this connection ready by Q2 2023, when the first issuances are expected. A second key component of the CP4D are direct financial incentives for ITMO project implementation. And we can pay here for up to 6 million verified ITMOs generated between 2022 and 2030. And we are currently working on 8 projects in 5 countries and will expand to 8 more projects in 7 countries soon. We engage here with project developers who have the capacity to upfront invest in projects and set up public-private partnerships with governments. And the financial incentives are then provided ex post to the implementers through the governments. And in order to respond to, can you hear me? Yeah, it's so loud. Wow. To respond to Article 6 capacity building needs, we have developed together with UNFCCC and other partners like the Swedish Energy Agency and the Institute for Global Environmental Strategies in Japan, a self-paced online course which was launched yesterday. But now I will turn over to our first presenter, Daniel. And before Daniel will present his early activities in Ghana, we show a short video. So now, without further ado, over to you, Daniel, to talk about your early activities in Ghana.
Okay. I'm sorry, I'm a bit tired, but it's because of this. We in Ghana decided to have a vibrant approach towards the carbon market because of our experiences in the CDM market. And as a result of that, we decided to engage in early pilots under the Article 6 program. And in this area, we have had 4 very important streams of work. The first one is the development of cooperative approaches between the Paris Agreement parties. And as a result of that, we have engaged with 3 cooperating parties, the government of Sweden, Singapore, and the Swiss government. In 2020 November, we signed the first ever cooperative approach with the Swiss government, and the RISE program is one of the several pipeline projects that have been implemented on the back of the Swiss agreement. We are also very happy to announce that the RISE project received the first ever authorization of the ITMOs just last night. And that statement is going to release today as we speak. We have also, as a host country, issued the first ever letter of authorization to the UNDP country office in Ghana, and that letter is going to be handed over to the UNDP shortly. So we really want to take bold, risky, but meaningful steps to take advantage of the opportunities in the carbon market for the benefit of private sector, communities in Ghana, and as well as attain our NDCs and beyond. And we really take this one very, very seriously. We also intend to announce our cooperation engagement with the government of Sweden and Singapore next week as to where we are. With Sweden, we've almost concluded the agreement. We are about to announce the agreement pretty soon. With Singapore, we are done with the agreement, and we are going to release a press release next week to communicate where we are with the Singapore agreement. The other part of the work is to establish a national framework for carbon markets. The national framework has been developed. It took us almost 2 years to get it done, and the Cabinet of Ghana has approved the framework. Next week, Tuesday, we are going to release the first ever carbon market framework in Africa, and we are happy to do so. It is supposed to be the framework to guide the development of carbon market projects in the compliance market, in the voluntary market, and also even in the COSEA market. And that, we hope, will stimulate the development of projects in Ghana. The third part of our work is also how to work with private sector and the local banks to unlock opportunities and investment into project development. That we are going to do this through constant engagement with the private sector and the local banks, and we want to do this as part of the effort to make sure that we don't only set out the framework, we support development of projects to be able to achieve our long-term goal that we set ourselves to achieve. Thank you.
Thank you, Daniel. Thank you so much. Impressive to see how Ghana is leading the way. Excellent. So our next speaker is Erika. She will talk about innovation in rice cultivation. And we have a presentation.
Yeah, I have a. So maybe you want to.
Presentation.
If you want to watch, then maybe you want to sit over there. Once again.
Sophie.
I can.
Oh my God.
I can speak to you, no? Yeah, I'm speaking loudly. Thank you so much, UNDP, for inviting me. It's a great honor to be with you. So I'm Erica Steiger. I'm a rice specialist. And UNDP, we got in touch and they invited me to come on the panel because I also work in West Africa and to see how complementary maybe the research and work that we do could be also available for other countries. So this is what you're looking at is a very typical rice field. Rice is at the intersection of 4 important issues: food security, poverty reduction, environmental management, and climate change. Half of the world population is having rice as a staple, and 80% of rice is grown by smallholder farmers. So this is a typical picture from when you see a rice field is flooded from the start when it's planted to the end. What you can see is rice plants growing, they don't look very happy. You know, they grow straight up, they're densely planted, the root system is very shallow, and the plant is not really in its best environment. So when you flood the fields, and that was already alluded to in the film, rice actually is responsible for 12% of global of man-made methane emission, the second in agriculture after dairy. Rice also uses 1/3 of global freshwater resources. Imagine that, 1/3 of global freshwater resources is used for rice production. But rice is a culprit for a lot of resource use and is a climate change driver. But rice is also vulnerable to climate change, and it's predicted that by 2050, rice yields will be declining by 15% due to climate change. So now we are here, we have all these problems, but so can rice be a solution? And rice needs to be a solution because it's such an important crop, no? So what would that solution look like? And now we have actually a agriculture solution. Now I can switch to the next. Oh, here we go. And it's an ecological way of growing rice. It's called the system of rice intensification. And if you see these plants, they're maybe the same age as the other ones. They're much happier. Now they're bushy, their roots grow deep, and they're not planted in water. So the system of rice intensification, as I mentioned, so what makes the difference? No, you can like how come like the plants from before look so different from these plants? What's the difference? So it's all depending on the planting method. No, we can use the same varieties. We do not need more inputs. We actually use less inputs, and it's based on planting principles. And this is very conducive to smallholder farmers who have difficulty in accessing inputs. So it's based on 4 principles. Plant rice when it's very young, widely spaced into a good soil. So we need to regenerate our soils and only irrigate very lightly. So what it does, it puts the rice plant in an environment where it actually really can express its potential. It has the space, the roots can go deep in a good soil. It's aerobic, not anaerobic. And so the plants become very bushy and big and much more productive. And you can see the benefits. They are basically benefits: increased yields, reduced water use, reduced chemical use, reduced seed use. Methane emissions go down, improved net benefit, and improved income. So if you look at the plants again, that's just what I wanted to emphasize here is maybe the lower part. When you see when a root is not flooded, because roots need to breathe as well, and they die and they stay superficial when they're flooded. So actually, when you're in a non-flooded environment, the roots can really grow deep and be productive. So if you have deep root growth, then the plant can be, the nutrition can go into the grain, and the grain filling will be prolonged and much better. So you have increased yields. And the other part is that plants get stronger. Even the tillers are thicker. There's more silica that the plants take up. And if you look on the upper right, when you have a drought, like what you see in India on the upper right, because we have deep roots, the plants can much better survive the drought. There have been like rainstorms or big storms. The plants, because they are strong, they stay upright. Actually, this method has also been applied to other crops, like wheat. So maybe this would be interesting for the Ukrainian delegation, as it just puts the plants now in the right environment to really express its potential. And so we have to think. Farmers then think, hey, wait a minute. Do I plant my crops actually the way they should be planted? And so there's a lot of innovation because it comes back to the farmers and the farmer decision making. So where does it leave? We actually at Cornell, we have a lot of experience. I myself for 20 years on the system. We've reached like 62 countries right now. I'm personally involved mostly in West Africa. For the past 15 years, I'm working on the system in West Africa. We had a World Bank funded project 2014 to 2016. I helped design and implement. Ghana was part of it. So there's a lot of capacity that we have built up. There were over 1,000 sites, and we reached 50,000 farmers across the region. Now, there's a new project funded through the Adaptation Fund, implemented by OSS, the Sahara and Sahel Observatory, and will start next January, and also Ghana is part of it. So I think what that means also is there's this community of practice, there's technical expertise, and we're going to strengthen that through our project, through that regional project. And then maybe the second interesting part that we could offer to the project is that right now we're developing a new model where we actually, when we train farmers, we would actually be able to monitor the reduced water that farmers have through satellite images. And if we can monitor through satellite images, we can calculate the methane reductions, and through that then organize the carbon credits. And so it's much more transparent, and it's immediate. So it's basically an improved way of measuring the methane gas reductions. And so I think this is in progress. We are running our first pilots, and we'll be happy to discuss this also with your project. Maybe we can run another pilot if that is possible. So I thank you for the time, and yeah, we'll look forward to continued discussion.
Yeah, thank you so much, Erika. Very interesting, and I'm also excited that you will be part or involved in the implementation of the ITMO project through your technical advisory role in the RECOVAS project. So there will be clearly synergies, and it's also encouraging to see that carbon finance can stimulate innovation and transformative change. Yeah, so I think this was really interesting to hear. Thank you. Now we turn to our... Shall we move back? Okay, there's a video to see. Maybe we go back. Okay, can you hear me now? Yeah. Okay, so this is so disgusting. Everybody is touching it. Huh? Okay, our next... Before we turn to Anthony, we will see a short video about an energy access project in Vanuatu, which is embedded in the National Green Energy Fund to accelerate the implementation of the Energy Fund. So? Okay. There is a presentation. Yeah, please. Anthony, and may I invite you now to present about the Energy Access Project. We have a presentation.
Okay. Thank you, everyone. Firstly, thank you, UNDP, for the invite for Vanuatu to share its experience today, and especially talk about a little bit on our engagement with the Swiss government around to promote Article 6.2. Like Ghana, Vanuatu as well has been fortunate to have this partnership with the Swiss government as an outcome of COP26 last year. We managed to sign off on a bilateral agreement with the Swiss government. I think for Ghana being more in the agriculture space, for Vanuatu, the bilateral is to really focus on the energy sector and commencing with the energy access project. So briefly, just before I go into detail on the Article 6, for those who are not aware of Vanuatu, a brief country context, we have 80 islands, to which 56 of it is inhabited. Our population stands today at 53,000. 20% of the population lives on the main island or the capital. Our key economic sector, of course, like other Pacific Island countries, and I guess in Africa as well, we rely heavily on subsistence farming or agriculture. Tourism is one of the biggest economic active sector, and as well as offshore financing. We are highly vulnerable to natural disasters. We often receive up to Category 5 cyclones, droughts, flooding, and also volcanic eruptions. In terms of our energy policy, we have what we call the National Energy Roadmaps, which guides the implementation of the sector policy with ambitious targets by 2030. We have 5 key priorities in there: accessibility, affordability, secure and reliable energy, sustainable energy, and green growth. Accessible energy is the key priority for us. To date, like in the previous slide, only 33% of the people have access to energy. So back in 2018, noting the Vanuatu government has been relying solely on outside support from donors, the government decided to establish a homegrown financing institution, which is called the National Green Energy Fund. So the main intention of having this National Green Energy Fund is to basically support the efforts of the Vanuatu government in implementing its energy sector policy. So to date, the government has contributed an amount of 500 million Vatu commencing back in 2020. So the main intention also is to attract financial support from outside, from other donors, to support the implementation of the National Green Energy Fund through the National Green Energy Fund as the financing vehicle to implement renewable energy access project, energy efficiency projects, and so forth. To date, that's the scope of the support to which, or the projects that have been implemented to date. We have 6 provinces in Vanuatu. On the far right, you would see the stats of how much we've been doing in terms of implementing solar projects in particular. And at the moment, we are focusing specifically on public institutions, education sector, tourism, cooperative, and another public institution where it fits well under the fund, because the fund is more or less has different products, but it's a revolving fund. So the NGF or the National Green Energy Fund tend to loan out funds to the public institution with a 6% interest rate. So it can be paid over a period of 3 or 5 years depending on their financing capacity. Again, like I mentioned earlier, this is just a summary or an update on where how far we've come in terms of implementing the energy access projects through the public institutions. In terms of the Article 6 project, since we signed off on the arrangement with the Swiss government as of 2021, we were so fortunate to be really supported by UNDP in providing technical and financial assistance to Vanuatu in establishing or formulating all the necessary frameworks, and especially the ITMOS manual, and guiding the Department of Energy in developing the MAD, securing potential investors, guiding them in how the Article 6 would work. So this is, to date, we've managed to sign off on a letter of authorization for the energy access project, and we are ready to kickstart energy access project. In parallel to that, we are working in finalizing a MAT for the fuel switch, which is basically biofuel utilizing coconut oil for fuel generation. So that is in partnership with the local utility, the biggest utility in country. So hopefully we will get the MAT finalized soon and validated soon and ready to be to have this letter of authorization from the Honorable Minister. So basically that's the a chart of the Article 6 in relation to the Paris Agreement. What have we done to date? And I think one of the key challenges now is securing potential investors to support the implementation of energy access project. I think given its fairly new approach, there's more awareness needed, consultation needed with the local and private sector in the country, and also with other potential private sectors abroad. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Anthony. Very interesting. As P&G speaker said in another event, Vanuatu is brave, another country that is leading the way, and we are also excited to be part of your journey. Our next speaker is Alexander, who will talk about mitigation opportunities in the Ukraine, and we have also a presentation, so we can stay here. Or we have a slide, at least. Yeah. Or do you want to move there? Okay. About mitigation opportunities for companies to access finance in times where no finance is available for Ukraine.
Yeah, thank you, Alexandra. Yeah, I will speak loudly because I don't have a presentation, so I will try to compensate by my voice. Yeah, dear colleagues, thank you once again to inviting us. Ukraine in July 7th, Ukraine signed an agreement with Switzerland to implement these climate projects under Article 6, and we are happy to try to help Ukrainian government. I mean UNDP Ukraine, because just recently the government of Ukraine confirmed that they would like involve UNDP to help implement those projects. So we are at very initial stage on this, but at the same time, currently we are doing gap analysis together with Alexandra to see what should be done, what should be added, how we can help. That's important, and we are waiting for these results of this gap analysis very soon. Number one. Secondly, meanwhile, also we are consulting with private sector in Ukraine to implement this, and particularly focusing also on agriculture. Agriculture in Ukraine is very strong, as you know, and we decided to find a champion among many companies. So we focused firstly on a big company to be like a good example to follow for the others. And we began partnering with Astarta Agro Holding. It's a big vertically integrated company which has above 200,000 hectares of land of operations, and they also have 22,000 cattle, dairy cattle in a list of farms. Actually, they are not concentrated in one place. As Erica mentioned, dairy is number one in agriculture in terms of emission, so that's good to consider. Actually, we consider several methodologies, not only in livestock, but in livestock we are considered etheric fermentation, methane. In crop production, also inoculant application instead of chemical fertilizers. But still, we are focusing to livestock and to methane. It seems to be most promising to have an impact. And also we engaged also a consultant to help us work with Astarta to identify whether the project could be viable and impactful. I think there are some like challenges or issues also in Ukraine, because many companies, they try to do, not many, but some leading, like even Astarta, try to do their own emission calculations. And it seems to me there are different methodologies. Not all of them could be applicable. For example, even for voluntary markets, for Article 6, and it seems it should be really good, verified and tested at the beginning, and to be clear whether we can move forward or not with those methodologies and those companies. But the main thing is that the company is huge. They initiated many things on their own. They do emission calculations. Now we are trying to evaluate and understand whether their work can be applicable to move forward with our initiative, with our project. And we hope that in 2023 we will have a big step forward. Of course, we have different other companies, like even organic companies, they would like to join to our initiative. We'll see. We began with one champion, and we'll see how to proceed most further. So that's it. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, Alexander. Yeah, and I think it's encouraging to see how carbon finance can allow companies to access finance, to invest in difficult times. So right. It's very encouraging to see. So our last speaker is Mireia. She will talk about her experience on Article 6, also another first mover, but from a private sector perspective. Yeah. Over to you, Mireia.
Thank you, Alexandra, and thank you, UNDP, for the invitation, and good morning, everyone. My name is Mireia, and I work at South Pole, but I probably want to say before that it's very inspiring to hear what Ghana, Vanuatu, and Ukraine are really doing on that front, on the voluntary cooperative approaches, together with Switzerland. So that's fantastic to hear already. For those of you that don't know who South Pole is, we are a climate project developer and climate solution provider. We have been in the market for quite some time now, since our inception in 2006, so over 16 years, and we have been playing in the market, compliance and voluntary market, for quite some time. We have been also early movers when it comes from the private sector on exploring how to support countries on the cooperation of Article 6.2, cooperative approaches, and we have been gaining a lot of knowledge as well on what countries need, on that gap analysis that Alexander was mentioning as well. So that helps us also understand where they are, where the countries are, what they need, and how we can really help them better, just to put the frameworks in place to use that mechanism that the Paris Agreement just provide, and that thankfully was approved in Glasgow in the last COP as well. We also believe that Article 6 will be a huge mechanism, will create that market, and we need to kind of just improve on gaining trust and scalability on the market to help also like countries increase their NDC ambition at that time as well. As of now, the players that we see in the market are mainly public sector and early movers, as we have heard already. Switzerland, we have seen here also Sweden, but also Singapore, and we have been cooperating with all of them as well, just to help support that process as well. We hear that like Switzerland have like 8 cooperative bilateral agreements already. I believe that Sweden just like signed 3 of them. Singapore, I was hearing yesterday that it was like in conversations with 20 more countries. So I think that that's starting to get very, very active, and it's very good to hear about that. And that's the case because like I think that countries have like stated in their NDCs, and at least in their first NDCs, that they wanted to actually use market-based mechanisms like Article 6 to play in the market. So I think that that's quite important signal already. But now that it has been approved, what we need is for the countries to signal that they want to engage in this market. And that's for us important as a private sector in order to provide private finance as well to certain projects, as like Vanuatu was mentioning as well. I think that that's key. And maybe one more thing that I want to say is that we have at the moment 2 projects with Switzerland, one in Thailand and another one in Morocco, that they have done that design phase that Vanuatu was showing in the steps. In Thailand is an electric vehicle bus program that we have, and it has been validated, and at the moment is ready to be issuing the letter of approval that Daniel was mentioning as well. So we are quite excited about that. Seeing how it has evolved. And in Morocco is an energy efficiency fund that we have as well. So we have gone through all those steps, through the experience that we have as well in this front, and we are very happy to support other countries that might need that support on that front. I think that like I can, and maybe one last thing probably is just to mention that we are going to be very excited to support UNDP in a program that they have on setting frameworks for Senegal, Ghana, Peru, and Georgia as well.
Yeah.
On that front, we need to start this project, but we're very excited as well to be supporting UNDP on that front. Thank you.
Thank you, Maria. We are also excited to have you as partner also for ad hoc support to project developers. There will for sure be many questions from the developer side. But before I open the floor for questions from the audience, I have one question for each panelist, and just a 2-minute reflection from each of you. So Daniel, you are the first. You will be asked. Ghana is the first developing country with a fully operational Article 6 framework. What is driving Ghana's ambition?
I mean, just briefly, I mean, as I said earlier, we have just one single purpose. The purpose is this: we are doing everything possible to unlock the opportunities that the market presents for the private sector to engage in the market and be active in helping in addressing climate action. That's our motivation. And I'm saying this because it is not enough to sign agreement or bilateral agreement. It's not enough to develop frameworks. It's not enough to have infrastructure. It ought to be backed with good financial mechanisms or instruments that would attract private sector. Otherwise, you have a big shell, and the shell doesn't yield any benefits. So to us, apart from doing these initial steps, what is important is to marshal all the key actors in the financial world, especially the local banks, to help unlock the opportunities that are presented in the carbon markets. And that is our single motive. Our motive is to ensure that private sector is on board and we scale up our action in the climate change area. Thank you.
Excellent, thank you. So Erika, you are managing a large-scale adaptation project that focuses on improved agricultural practices in times where holistic approaches are needed. How does your adaptation project, the RECOVAS project, that you support as technical advisor, has the potential to build synergies with climate change mitigation?
So adaptation and mitigation, how can we push that together? Yeah, I think in agriculture, as long as we, the conventional way, the input-based agriculture, we have a lot of problems because which kind of has all these contradictions, because mitigation and adaptation. But when you go into regenerative agriculture, where you actually start building soils up again, and build a healthy agriculture where you create a healthy system of soil microbes for plants, etc. You get into these win-win situations, because if we start with sequestering soil carbon, we also create a healthier soil environment. Our crops will be healthier, because input-based agriculture has been actually driving soil degradation. But we can't really move forward with degrading soils. We need to build back soils. So that, I think, is a very important entry point. And as you enter that journey of rebuilding soils, bringing back diversity, you basically have a win-win. As I presented with the SRI, we can we could create healthy plants, rebuild our soils. At that point, we can reduce emissions. I mean, less fertilizer means less production of fertilizer, less transport of fertilizer, less poisoning of our environment. So we can. These aspects haven't even put into calculation. But again, we can reduce methane by reducing the water. We can increase soil carbon, and so I think it's a win-win. As we enter a different path, if we enter a different path of agriculture, we can create this win-win. I mean, it goes one with the other. It's not a problem.
Great, thank you, Erika. So Anthony, now to you. You talked about the National Green Energy Fund and how government-supported infrastructure can support the implementation of the Energy Access Project. But how can carbon finance now help to accelerate the implementation of the National Clean Energy Fund?
Thank you. So, like I mentioned earlier on, the National Green Energy Fund is a revolving fund, which its core focus is to promote or support the implementation of energy access projects and energy efficiency project in Vanuatu. But I think for Vanuatu, to date we are heavily relying on donor support, but not much on the private sector. So for the last 5 years, Vanuatu has been working on establishing necessary conducive environment that would attract private sector into the financing mix. Therefore, tapping into carbon financing through the Swiss that we've just signed up with, it will help stimulate the increasing delivery or implementation of the energy access project by way of promoting private sector in fast-tracking the implementation of energy access project, but guided through the energy National Green Energy Fund. Thank you.
Yeah, this is better, I think, right? Can you hear me? Yeah. Okay, so Alexander, you spoke about Astata, the ambitious company Astata. How can their ambition help them to not only stay in business during these difficult times, but even recover faster?
Yeah, thank you, Alexandra. Yeah, I think energy safety for Ukraine for current time is becoming very important thing because of all those what is happening now, and that's that's a big motivation also for agro businesses now to look at biofuel production for energy saving for their actual new their new business models when they can rely more on their energy as well. That's one thing, and secondly. What I like, Daniel actually comments from Ghana that these financial models to attract finance, it also drives a lot, including a startup company, to find new models, to build around emission reduction, new financial models. And so, it's actually, I think that empowers such companies as a startup to look for this look for this subject very closely, because they are public company. They have ESG rating. They pay attention to sustainable development, and they invest a lot in that. They have to invest to be sustainable company and to be positioned as a leader in terms of that. And so I think they also count money very closely. There is always not enough money for new projects, but they really realize what is important now. And they think that green finance, sustainable finance, is the main factor for them to move forward. And that's why we want to partner them, because many other companies they're not yet so much aware of all those potential, all those perspectives, unfortunately. And maybe that's another subject, but for Ukraine, there's a huge public awareness campaign is needed to involve and engage more other actors, but it's still way forward. That's why we began with the most advanced company here. Thank you.
Thank you, Alexander. Mireia, you have ample of experience in carbon finance. From a private sector perspective, what is needed in order to participate successfully in Article 6?
I think it's a clear message. For me, it's taking action and learning by doing on that process. I think that we have heard already the examples where countries have learned by just starting this process. And I think that we cannot really wait for having everything perfect, but we need to really start moving forward on that front, and then that would attract the investment that Article 6 provides as well on that front, and signal to the private sector how countries want to cooperate in that market and which strategies they are putting forward. So this way we understand better where we could really probably channel that investment in their countries and help them raise that ambition that it's very much needed for everyone just to keep temperatures under 1.5 degrees. So I think that that's vital and would be that clear message. That's it.
Yeah, thank you. So now open for questions from the audience.
Okay. Good. Hi. I so far have little question, but just to applaud to what you all achieved in this journey, I would say. So this is really the start of maybe what will become a vibrant market in Ghana, and I do believe this is also part of the intention of Ghana to use the sweet spot of the moment to become maybe the carbon hub within the region, maybe within more than the region, because continuous push towards more demand from within the UNFCCC framework for units with corresponding adjustments, we heard it, is emerging, and Ghana will be ready.
Thank you so much for such a very insightful presentations made. But I have 3 questions that I really want to hear from the panel, and one probably goes to you, whether or not, what do you think probably the greatest fear of the farmers to adopt the kind of technology that you indicated, and probably also to hear from you, what are the biggest fears of the private sector in the engagement of the carbon market and Article 6 in general you know of, and what steps can we as countries be able to take in order to address those issues, if you can help us address that. Thank you.
What's the fear to adopt?
Yes, exactly.
What the fear of to adopt? You know, I think it depends on the approach that you're taking, and we are basically taking an approach. Wherever I work with farmers, and I've been working many countries with farmers, is work on a small scale, do comparisons, and have a discussion around it. Let's say, have a volunteer of a farmer come forward and say, hey, you want to try a new method? Let's plant it this way, and then let's plant your way, and then we have a discussion. So there's basically put the farmer in the driver's seat from the beginning. You know, so I'm not imposing anything. And so that becomes like a learning environment. There's no fear that, you know, like if farmers don't like it, they don't have to participate. So and do it at their level where they can participate, you know, and you have that discussion with them. How much do you want to participate? And maybe if there's, you know, so I think that's basically how I've been working for the past 20 years, and it has been, I mean, for me, working with farmers is the easiest thing. Because if you do it that way, it's more difficult to convince anybody else that actually what the farmer wants and what the farmer needs, that people actually listen to that. So it depends on the approach. But if you come in and say, well, do it this way, I'm the person, I know because I'm the expert and you don't, maybe the farmer will always say, yeah, I'll try it, because they never refuse, but then it will not stick. And after 3 years, you know, they move back to whatever they have been doing, and they have been friendly to you, but it hasn't really helped them. So it depends on the approach. So from the start.
And maybe from my side, I would say that we have been exploring that for quite some time, and things were probably not like ready yet and in place. I mean, we had like that agreement only back in Glasgow. So that uncertainty is what like probably creates that private sector does not want to really be involved right now. We need much more action and much more in a shorter time, and those things takes longer when you engage on those bilateral agreements, and when you hear from governments how ready they are or not on that. They need to really understand how they want to include Article 6 in their national like planning and policies and regulations. They need to have infrastructure in place as well in order just to have that cooperation up and running. So all that takes time. I mean, we believe that that's the way to go, and I have said that this is a huge market. It can be quite big, but the barriers are those ones as well. Not having things in place that creates the environment for us to invest right away and scale that up as it's needed.
Thank you very much. Well, it was just mentioned we have Glasgow only for 1 year, and it sometimes feels like we are on a journey in complete darkness, and everybody is searching for a way or the way. At least we have now a little bit of moonlight from Glasgow, but because it's new and it's difficult for all of us, I would like to ask the panelists. Whoa. I would like to invite the panelists to picture a vision. What will we be talking at COP27?
I will go ahead by saying that I hope that by COP37 things are up and running, and most of like the countries have like cooperative approaches already. Yeah, sorry. Now. Can you hear me now? Yes. It's a question and a half, because Jacqueline, because the question. You want to repeat the question with the mic?
Okay. To encourage us all in the darkness of our journey, my question to the panelists are, what are we going to talk about at COP37 to create a vision where we want to be in 10 years that helps us to find the way to go there?
And what I said is that I wish that we have already plenty of those cooperative approaches and bilateral agreements in place already, and a lot of like mobilized finance to the countries that have like helped them like raise the ambition that they need for their NDCs, and to help them achieve their targets as well. It's a dreaming ambition here for 2037, but I hope that like we can really see it happen.
Yeah, maybe I could say that maybe what we will not speak about some subjects in 10 years. And I think we will not speak about the need to have not expensive methodologies to do emission calculations. We would not speak about inventing and practicing models to get finance. I think we will have these models available, different kind of models, and emission calculations will be digital and quick, and no how it's called, no fake emission, no fake calculations. So that would be maybe in the past by that time. Let's hope. Yeah, thank you.
More, or shall we answer? Huh? Do we want to answer?
Sorry, I didn't even know what.
Huh? No, I mean, we can have a vision of being in a better world. I think what needs to happen, I mean, when I'm looking at how development or how certain things work, they're so channeled, they're so process oriented, on how things work. And if there's a solution that's available that actually can make it happen and comes from the base, from the bottom up, then the question is always, oh no, this doesn't work that way. Oh no, you're not eligible. Oh no, we're not talking about this. So we're basically missing out because of the processes that are in place. We're missing out on solving the problem a lot. I mean, I think if we were able to be more flexible, actually just sit down and really think things through and discuss things through on how we're going to put these solutions in place, instead of, oh, I have to talk to this person and I cannot talk to that person, and our process goes this way and that way. Then we never. That's my biggest fear. Then we won't have any big progress. But we can make progress if we just sit together and work out the solution. The solutions are there, but they're not implemented because the system doesn't work around it to make them being implemented.
Yeah, I think just to add on, like my other colleagues, I think COP is quite a hectic process. We can sit here for the whole 3 weeks, next year the same thing, but I think we should put aside these hectic processes. Now take the driver's seat and keep the momentum going, even though there may be challenges ahead, but I think there needs to be a handshake in all things, like for the technical, financial, and the technology. Once we have that, then the future is bright for everyone. Thank you.
The next 10 years, no more talking, deliver action.
I think this is better. Yeah, okay. Yeah, can I just quickly also say something to what is happening in 10? You cannot hear me, you can, yeah, now it works. Okay, so I don't think that is an issue of frameworks, of processes, of methodologies. The real issue is the lack of the decision of governments to really move ahead and implement. If a government is ready to go ahead, and this is what we can see with the early movers, with Ghana, with Vanuatu, with another handful of countries that is politically ready to move, then projects will go ahead and will be implemented. And the situation will be very similar to the CDM. In the CDM, we had maybe 4 or 5 countries that succeeded because they found a way to participate, and they wanted to participate and wanted to scale up. And the same will happen in Article 6. It will be different countries this time, but there will be a handful of countries that will be successful, and the rest will look back probably and say missed opportunity again, and then we will change the system again and all over again. Yeah, but anyway, I think it's just the will.
Thank you very much for the insightful presentations. My concern, I am a banker and I work in a financial institution, the Agricultural Development Bank in Ghana. What I seek to understand is, especially from the Vanuatu experience, how does it contribute to food security in terms of the current systems, right? And the level of production. How are the processes that you are now adopting and the technology that has been introduced, comparing that in the flooded area and the drier place? How is that also helping to improve upon yields and therefore contribute to meeting the food needs of the people? And in terms of costs, cost of finance, how better is it to what it is now? Does it come with any further requirements that makes it more expensive in accessing than it is with the traditional sources of financing today? The second one is in terms of currency risk. How is that to be catered for? Right? Yes, so if those could be addressed, I'd be grateful. Thank you.
Okay. Sorry. So I just want to ask a question to Our Lady, right? I was very impressed with the presentation you made. And for Ghana, we've tried to do an initial consultation with the farmers that we will be working on with the rice project, right? And their major concern has to do with yields. Okay, as we are trying to transition them from the processes they are using now to the alternative wetting and drying technology, their concern is how is this going to impact their yield. From your presentation, I saw that you gave a figure between 20 to 50% as improvement in yield. Was there any situation where you had the reverse, right? The reverse. And what were some of the approaches that you employed to ensure that they are able to move from reducing yield to improve yield? Yeah.
What's the question?
How it contributes to food security, I think. What's this the question, right?
So if I understand your question right, is it how does the Energy Access Project contributes to food security, if I'm correct? Yeah, so I think for Vanuatu, the productive sector is one of the key priority for us. So, but the challenge for us is to do with reliable energy. When you look at trying to increase production and value added in terms of the agricultural crops, that always is a challenge. So by beefing up or having in place reliable energy access projects, that is where you would farmers and not only farmers but the agro processors would have this benefit of tapping into reliable energy sources to further provide to increase productions of the food. Thank you.
I mean, the currency risk issue, I mean, all of these things are supposed to be indexed in dollars. I mean, so presumably, the risk of forest depreciation will not affect the overall investments outlay. The fear is also that if you have the Ghanaian banks providing their own funding, how then do we protect the impact of currency depreciation on the investment? I'm sure that you are better placed to find a solution than I do. But I think that, I mean, in all of this, it will depend on innovation from the banks in terms of the design of the financial models. And that is the best I can say. Yeah.
So yes, thank you for your question. And the first objective is to improve yields. Now, how do we improve yields in an African environment? And we know that the use of fertilizers that farmers gotten used to, but then they see, oh, I can put more and more and more fertilizer, and my yields get less and less and less. And then suddenly my soils get hard, my soil is degraded. So I'm just saying, like, only using fertilizer is not what brings you to sustaining your yield increase. So we need to like rethink things. So first we need to start with the soil, no? So when you bring up your soil, then your plants can become productive. Then you may add fertilizer. But now for the rice system, and I think because what happened when you only take away irrigation, you're in an irrigation scheme, and that's why I've shown my first picture. How is rice planted? It's planted in water, very dense with old seedlings. So what it is, there's a competition between the plants. They're very densely planted, old seedlings, so you have a very shallow root system. Now, if you plant it the way farmers always planted, and you take away the water, yeah, what happens? The roots, they're not functioning, they're superficial, maybe the water level goes a little below, and here, hello, now we have a drought condition, and the yields remain the same, or they go down. And this is what happens if you just take away irrigation. But if you actually use the aerated soil, and you take young seedlings that have the potential to grow, you improve your soils, so you have actually a fertile soil, and you increase the spacing. Now we have the plants have room to grow the roots. So it's just kind of like thinking about how does the plant develop under the practices that I'm implementing, and really looking at that, looking at the roots, and then you realize that, oh, I only have to add, it's not difficult. We only have to like add the other practices with reducing water to actually increase yields, because then the plants are much happier with less water, because as we were hearing, they don't like to be flooded. Rice plants do not like to be flooded. They tolerate to be flooded. They need to pump oxygen into the roots to survive. But the roots are not thriving on the flooding. So, but we need to put the other practices, which are not difficult for the farmers, so they can combine that. And we have trained we have trained thousands of farmers, and then they understand it, and then that's it. You know, you're basically you increase yields, and you use less inputs. It's not difficult, but it is a journey to observe for the first time. And I have many experiences. A farmer, we pick out the roots. A farmer comes and say, "Oh, this is how it looks like. All right, I can go home now. I understood the whole thing." I'm just saying, like, it's the package of studying how to put the plant in its best environment so it really expresses its potential. And we do not do that with a lot of agriculture. We do more with more. We need more seed, we need more fertilizer, we need more, and so we don't ever really let the plant express its potential. now we're like revisiting agriculture. The farmers then started, when I worked in Mali, for instance, they started to now say, can I do this with wheat? I said, wow, try it. Can I do this with sugarcane? Can I do this with other crops? And they continue experimenting because they realize, hey, maybe we need to rethink certain things on how we apply agronomy to our crops. And I think that's very empowering as well to the farmers, because it then only depends on the decision making and the knowledge of the farmer, and not on what the experts come and tell them. So it's extremely empowering, and that's why I love to work with that type of method.
Excellent. So no more questions. Do you have? We have 5 minutes.
Yeah. Thank you. Quick one. Regarding, I mean, Africa or the region has been quite underserved in the CDM times. No experience with the CDM now. In Ghana, we have the framework, we have training courses, but still the question is also from my experience, will the local investors and entrepreneurs pick up? Because of course international organizations like South Pole are there to structure carbon finance, but ultimately there needs to be like the business case on site. And do you see there a need for changing a mindset? Because our experience is that the region is more used to upfront finance transactions.
I mean, that is a very important part of piece of the pie, because as I said earlier, without private sector interests, all of this would not realize the goal, and therefore we need to really reorient the minds of the local business owners to also begin to appreciate the opportunities. But I think that some of the skepticism is also due to their experiences in the CDM market, which unfortunately also left a very sorry experiences that they had in terms of cost of transactions, in terms of the local banks not actively involved in the financing of the project, and also in terms of the bureaucratic nature of the CDM process. So that said, what we intend to do really is to focus on working with associations and the local banks to see how we can turbocharge the interests of the local businesses to see the importance, and also very importantly go over the risk, because I think it's also the risk of not taking action that is the point. So we really want to complement all the nice things about the framework with the whole idea of working with associations and help to kickstart the pipeline. Yeah.
For I know you know very much about what is happening in Ghana, and the approach that the government is adopting is to ensure that they basically involve the private sector right even from the beginning. It's not when the food is ready. They engage them right even from the beginning. That is gradually changing the perception about the nature of the projects and whether or not they be willing to even invest. One of the local banks, they are here with us, and they've been involved in the entire discussions all over the place. And it seems to suggest that their mindset is changing towards financing local adaptation or mitigation projects in country. So I believe that with time, I mean, there will be a lot of interest, right, even from the local banks or local financial institutions willing to finance such projects. Thank you.
And one more thing, that it is also important for the government department that are responsible for creating the enabling business environment to also create that, because the cost of borrowing can be very exorbitant and the environment is not conducive for them, you can create a very fantastic framework, nobody will respond. So it takes a whole government approach to make the private sector thrive. Otherwise, it doesn't work.
Anthony, do you also want to say something about this topic?
Yeah, I think just to add on from my colleague, we have similar cases like Ghana. For Vanuatu being a small economy, I think the risk is very high for the private sector to participate in such an activity. So having the right modality in place, the necessary or conducive environment, frameworks, manuals would allow, would give them the comfort so that they can invest in those energy access projects. So only by having this right modality in place, that is where we could guarantee the implementation of this carbon financing to be successful. Without having that, I mean, for us, for Vanuatu, we perceive the carbon financing as the vehicle that would harness or would speed up the implementation of our NDC. So it's crucial that the knowledge of the local private sectors in the space of Article 6.2 especially, so is something that is crucial and the key to transition towards achieving the 100% 2030 targets for Vanuatu. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much to our panelists. The session is now coming to an end. An applause for our panelists. And thank you so much for joining this event. Thank you for coming.